Hello, I'm Chris The Zelda Collector, and welcome back to Gossip Stones. We're on part 3, and I'm joined with Simon Locke.
Hello.
And in this part, we'll be discussing Simon's favourite Zelda games in the franchise. We've already done part 1, where we got to know Simon. Part 2, where he answered 12 Zelda-related questions. This is part 3, where we talk about his favourite game, and then we have part 4 to follow, where we'll be discussing a topic of Simon's choice. So yeah, let's just get straight into it, Simon, and here we're going to discuss what your favourite game is in the Zelda franchise.
Okay, well, I started off with Zelda 2.
Yeah.
The next one I actually played through to completion was Legend of Zelda. Any other games I kind of had a dabble at, but didn't really get that far in. Nothing really appealed too much. Until you got Breath of the Wild.
Right.
So that is my favourite. Mostly because it encompasses so much stuff of the previous games that I'd missed out on or just couldn't get to grips with. So there's lots of callbacks to previous games in the series, which made it very interesting for me. So it's kind of like a compilation of everything they've done before, merged into a new game that I can pick up as a new person coming to the series effectively and go, right, I can actually enjoy this, I can get into this. There's no prior hype, I suppose. I haven't had to endure years of people telling me how good this game is. I can make up my own mind because I'm almost coming in to it as someone who's playing it for the first time at the time of release, which I hadn't had the opportunity with the previous games, really. Yeah. Everything was kind of like a good couple of years after, or even decades after. So it was nice to come in sort of fresh and go, right, this is a game I can get into from the start. I don't have to worry. I don't have to be told someone else's opinion to why I should be playing it. It's just a good game.
Yeah.
And people are enjoying it at the time. No one's really discovered what happens at the end yet, so none of that's been ruined for me. So it was just refreshing and different, and for the first time it was a 3D Zelda game that didn't annoy the hell out of me. It was one that actually had a platform that they could make use of. It didn't have to cut too much back to get things to work. So there's nothing more annoying than playing not a better game, but a game that's making better use of what it's been released on, and then you go and play the same, play a similar game in the Zelda series of the time, where it's almost every game in the series was almost rushed to release on new hardware to sell the hardware, and there's a lot of times where that's kind of bit them. Whereas this didn't seem to have the trouble. They saw the Switch coming from a while ago. They were planning the Wii U version for pretty much almost in when the Wii U was on its deathbed. The game came out, So they'd had all that time to work on it. They weren't rushing anything. They were almost developing them side by side, I suppose. So there was no major drawback for what you were playing. Whereas if you look at, say, I'm going to say Ocarina of Time again, sorry, versus Majora's Mask. Ocarina of Time is very, I'd say, unpolished compared to Majora's Mask. You start playing Majora's Mask, there is no, I'm not chugging as I'm playing it. It's kind of smooth. It feels right, whereas the previous game doesn't feel like it's had that much attention. The game's been rushed to release. This didn't feel like that at all. From the very start of the game you're playing, there is no stuttering. I wasn't able to break the game in about 10 minutes, which I've had with previous games in the series. Even Link's crossbow training, I managed to get, I think I told you, I got stuck. And it just would not let me get past, was it one of the first like boss things you get, or targets that just weren't appearing. Things disappeared that should appear. That things like that. So I tend to be I tend to break things easily, and I wasn't able to break this game when I was playing it, which was unheard of compared to my previous
track record.
Yes, previous track record of Zelda games. So, when I had been playing Link to the Past, the amount of times I've lost my save progress on that game through doing something silly or stupid, or having hardware that was unstable at the time. It was reliable. It worked. Although the first time I was playing it, it was on an emulator, wasn't it? So
yes.
Wii U emulator I was playing it on. So you'd think, of all things, that would be the most unstable experience on the earth, and it was actually rock solid. I could not break that game.
I'm saying, how did you find that?
It was absolutely fine. It was almost like a perfect experience. I could not fault it. It just worked, even with the
because you've played both now, haven't you? You've played obviously on the same year, and now you've played on the Switch. So.
Yeah. Other than in certain areas, if you're doing something very stupid, like I do often with bombs and things relating to physics, or really upsetting it by using magnesis on a giant metal object and then ramming it into enemies, things like that, or blowing them up with bombs when it's very inappropriate to do so, and watching it go and then catch up. So even things like that, and it just rock solid on Semu. So and the Switch, when it catches up on the occasions where it goes a bit nuts, like you got a barrel full of explosives, one of those Moblin Skull Cave things, and you've got bomb arrows, and you've got one of the Lionel ones that shoots 5 at a time, and you think this will be hilarious. Occasionally it goes okay, and then carries on. So I couldn't fault it. I couldn't break it, and I liked that. And there was stuff I could do that I thought, they're not going to let me do this. Oh, they let me do this. They've thought about someone might do something this stupid, and they actually have an answer for it. The amount of times I've had that in this game, and the amount of games I've had that I've played where I will do something stupid. I will do something that they didn't really think of having an exception for, and it handles it.
Well, that's one of the best things about the game, I think, where you do things that you're not supposed to do, and you find new ways of doing the things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The amount of times I've streamed Breath of the Wild and I'll go to a shrine and someone will say, I did it like this, I was in this for ages, and all of a sudden I'll do it an easy way, and then they'll be like, oh, I never thought about doing like that, because I broke the rules a different way than what they did.
Yeah.
It's, just the fact that you can do anything you want, like you're saying, and just,
Yeah, total freedom, and there is no problems with stuff you'd expect to be scripted.
Yeah.
You come to any other game, you get a big 3D open world environment, and there are rules. And if you break the rules, there are consequences to how the stability of the game works out. You pick any open world game, and you can break it very easily by doing something that you shouldn't be able to do. Get stuck in something, get trapped in something. But the quest that is going on in the world or objective breaks because you did something that you weren't supposed to do, that you didn't encounter. In this game, you struggle to get to anything like that. You have to be on a known bug, doing it on purpose to have a problem.
The map, there's nowhere in the map you can't go. I mean, like you say, on some open world games, there's certain points of the map that you still can't get to. This is too high, but you know
where the edge of the sandpit is.
Yeah.
There's always a sandpit edge, and you find it very easily. And it's like, oh, why can't I go up there? And it's like, oh, because that's the confines of the world. And in this game, you don't have that in the same way. They cater for it very, very well. And at no point do I feel like I'm being forced to do something. I have to go there. There's nothing else for me to do. I have to go and do that thing. I can do that at my own pace. So on the Switch version, I still haven't actually finished it. I finished it on Cemu, but I'd never actually finished it on Switch yet, because I'm still doing stuff. It's still lots for me to do.
Like, it is like the whole, like, Gus Newton, who we both know very well. He, how many hours did he get? 350 hours before he finally faced Ganon? And that's just because he was just hanging out, just enjoying it. I mean, not doing anything special. And I've done that myself. Before I start Master Mode, I'll turn it on and just spend 2 hours on a night doing nothing. Just walking around, exploring, doing what you love doing, which we said in the previous part, exploring the snow. Or you'll go and explore the forest and just hanging out and trying new things. And can I climb that mountain? Of course you can. You know what I mean? Can I go over there? Can I chop this tree down and do this and use that as a bridge? And just, it is the possibilities, the work that has gone in that game that shows, and just there is the endless possibilities and the options. I've found no limit even myself. I found there's nothing. I don't think there's anything I thought of doing that I couldn't do. If that makes sense.
The only thing that limits you is preparation. So whether that's you need certain items or certain prerequisites to do something, like food, armor, weapons, those sort of things, to do certain things in that game. That's it. That's your only limitation, is just making sure you've got just enough of what you need to go and get stuff done.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you just mentioned foods, weapon and armor. I know a lot of people's gripes of the game is the weapons and stuff like that, and how do you break? But I quite like that, because for me, I love a Lionel hunt. I do. I love going on a Lionel crawl, as I call it. So I love it when my weapons are getting low. And I think, you know what, I'm going to go and restock here. And I have myself a little path. I'll go around, I'll kill 4 or 5 Lionels, stock up, and it's fun. And I don't mind it. And you get decent weapons and stuff like that. And don't get us wrong, I think early on in the game, when you've got 2 tree branches and you've got 5 moblins in front of you and you break into 2, it's annoying. But that's what makes the game good, because the progression of becoming OP, you know what I mean?
I think the weapon durability is justified, because otherwise you'd pick up your 130 something Lionel Crusher, whatever it goes up to. Once you had that, you wouldn't bother with anything else. What's the point of the Master Sword? You wouldn't need it. Once you have that weapon, and if it was unbreakable, you wouldn't need to do anything else in the game.
I've had a 97 Lionel Sword before, one-handed Lionel Sword 97. If I had that and it never broke, that's it. That's just me just destroying everything.
Yeah. So there'd be no point. There'd be like, why bother with the Master Sword trials? You just wouldn't, would you? No, what's the point?
Talking about it now, I do love the parts in the game where all my strong weapons are gone and I'm stuck with a couple of low-level swords and I'm in the middle of a fight. At the time, I don't like it. But looking back now, you enjoy those bits because they make you think on your feet, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and am I going to get through this fight? And it does make it enjoyable. It really does. I think it worked quite well, the weapon durability.
My only complaint with weapon durability is the Master Sword almost feels like I'm using something made out of sugar paper.
Yeah.
Some bosses, or not bosses, I suppose, just normal mobs, especially Guardians, is it level 4 or level 5, whatever ones they are, you start using the Master Sword, you do some significant damage against it, but it won't last a fight. And I think that's a bit counterproductive.
Yeah, they should have had a bit long. I understand what they did with the Master Sword, but it could have had a bit more durability about itself.
Yeah, if it's going to break that easily against certain types of enemies, just don't bother letting us use it. I would say, just make it if you're in a combat trial, don't let you use the Master Sword.
Yeah.
Why make it break and then you have to wait for it to recharge if you want to use it again? It's supposed to be the most iconic and strongest weapon in the game. The only thing it's supposed to kind of get damaged by is if you're fighting Ganon, which seems to be at the end of every game. You kill Ganon with the Master Sword and then it needs to sleep and be recharged. So it doesn't make sense to me for a Guardian to be able to destroy it by you whacking it or doing a flurry rush with it. That didn't make sense to me.
You see, that was one thing for me about the Master Sword in the game. That was maybe one of my only gripes about the game, really, was I wish the Master Sword was mandatory to fight Ganon.
Yeah.
It should be, you know what I mean? Maybe they could have had it where, they easily could have had it where from each Divine Beast you got something and you use that to go and, I don't know. They tried to make the game too open so you could do as little or as much as you wanted, but you should have had to have the sword to break the seal at least to get into the castle.
I think what they should have done, if this was my thing I was in charge of, is the Master Sword only do damage against certain things. Otherwise, it would do like pitiful damage. You'd have no durability concept. It's just it would be useless against certain things, which would kind of make sense with what the whole ethos of it is about. It's supposed to be, defeating evil. So if you're defeating guardians, which are in the shrines, they're not really evil. They're test setup, aren't they?
Yeah.
So just have it do no damage. So I'm whacking it with the sword, does no damage. Okay, I'll switch to a weapon I can actually do damage with, rather than wait for it to recharge. Because you might have something you actually need to use it on. That is evil, that you want to do damage, and it's like, where's the sword? Oh, it's on recharge because it broke when I accidentally started using it because the other weapon broke.
Well, so each enemy had a different damage force. So for some it's 0, or maybe for a moblin it only did 1 damage, and maybe a guard it did 10, whatever, and stuff like that.
They do have it to an extent with some of the lizards, because they're elemental based, aren't they? So if you go and whack an ice one with a flame sword, it dies instantly. Yeah. But there's not enough of that. At least not that's obvious. At least there's no. Some weapons do more damage than others against certain things, but it's not explained to you, and it's not as obvious as it should be. Like you'd like to see like a big number, say in red, if you did fire damage, something that's like susceptible to fire damage, like you would see in other games. In this, it's just the same number system comes up. You don't really notice if it's doing more or not. You're too busy worrying about your durability.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my only gripe on it. But the game as a whole, not being too familiar with a lot of the previous games, like in terms of its complete story. So I'd say I've probably played the first maybe 30 to 60 minutes of every game that they've released. That even includes the CDI ones, just to be clear. So I have seen every introduction to every Zelda game, but that's about it for my knowledge of the storyline. Whereas this game incorporates a lot of it in. So there's a lot of stuff I've had to go off and read about afterwards to go, okay. And they do show a bit of that in the menu system for items and things. You get little tidbits of lore. So it's been nice to kind of have something that compiles it all into one game. That references all the different things. And stuff I've gone off and had a quick sort of what would you call it, like what would you say, like a primer about a certain game. So for example, Twilight I knew, but I didn't know much about Skyward Sword other than the first 60 minutes of me going, I cannot cope with this attack system, with this Wiimote thing. This is not for me. This is not my kind of game. So there's a lot of things that are covered in that are referenced in Breath of the Wild that I didn't understand. So I had to go off and read about it. Yeah. So I like that. So if you had played that game, you would go, I know what that is.
Yeah.
Excellent. That ties in stuff I know. So it does appeal to anyone who's played a previous game in the series.
One of the memories is where the sword talks to
the
Zelda and stuff like that. Or even in one of the ceremonies where Zelda references 3 different games there.
Exactly.
So traveling through time or soaked in the embers of twilight. That kind of, it's like nice references. So it does for us fanboys who go, I get that. I love that, and it ties them in.
Well, there was a lot of instances in that game where they'd be talking about something or something would be referenced, and I'm like going, why does that seem familiar?
Yeah.
Well, why is that niggling? Why do I know that? Go off, read about it. Oh, they're clever. So once you start noticing it sort of cropping up more often, it's like, this must be related to another Zelda game. Yeah, and there's a lot of that happens. Once you kind of open your eyes a bit to what they're talking about, nothing seems to happen in this game without a reason, almost.
Yeah.
So there's annoying people talking to you about, if you were the real hero, you'd have the sword, that sort of thing. They're talking about the progression where you start with your basic weapons and eventually get your master sword. Things like that. And people being scared of the dark versions of your character, or confusing you with someone else related to another game that I hadn't played. So reading up about it, okay, that's to do with that. That makes sense. So yeah, I like that. I thought they did quite a good job of that, and also like the famous horses from previous games as well.
Yeah, or I just roll around on Ganondorf all the time. I love the big horse from Ganon, and obviously Zelda's horses in and Epona. All three horses are in basically.
Yeah.
From Ocarina of Time, your favourite game.
Yeah, at least it's not like 20 frames a second as you're riding now. Copes with it a fair bit better. And I suppose that's what leads me on to my other favourite game,
Hyrule Warriors.
And for the same reason, they tie in so much of the previous game's source material.
You do.
And they did such a good... Because if that wasn't a Hyrule Warriors, well, a Dynasty Warriors type game, I'm not sure I would have wanted to play it. Just another game spin-off. I don't think I'd have wanted to play it.
Yeah.
So that could have easily been, I don't know, some generic 3D game of some kind that just happened to have Zelda content. I don't think I'd have been interested. Or a lot of the games these days, they like to do compilations of just fighting games.
Yeah.
Could have easily been a generic fighting game with Zelda characters. Combat like Street Fighter or Tekken, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done that yet, because Square do that every few years with all their IP. So that could have easily been that game.
I'm sure he went on a sports version of Zelda right now, where they do a bit of
football
and golf and bowling.
Oh yeah, Link and Ganon at the Winter Olympics. Yeah. Anything like that. That could have easily been that. But I've played Dynasty Warriors games, and I wasn't a big fan, but I was a big fan of the spin-off ones, like the Gundam, Dynasty Warriors Gundam games.
Yeah.
So I saw some gameplay of this, and I thought, I'm not the biggest Zelda fan, but I do like Dynasty Warrior games, so maybe this is for me. So saw a video of the Wii U version. I thought, okay, I recognise this type of game, and it's Zelda based. So if it's going to cover all the Zelda source material, and I get to beat the ever-living hell out of stuff and button mash and do some sort of tactics for it, I'm really going to enjoy this, and I'm going to learn about various things that's happened in the Legend of Zelda series. I thought this is perfect. So on the back of Breath of the Wild, sort of getting me into the sort of lore and ethos that's going on, storyline, multiple storylines and things, I thought this would be perfect. And then they brought in pretty much all the art style from Twilight Princess as well. Yeah. So I thought, right, the first 3D Zelda game I actually got along enough with to cope with the game, just to get through this, because the story is what was interesting me more about that game than the actual game itself. The 3D side of it I'm tolerating, but I'm not really enjoying. I'm just like playing through to get to the next important cutscene. So like this, I get to button mash, I get to beat the living hell out of things, I get to explode and kill like 100 things on screen, and then I get a cutscene. This is excellent. This is exactly my perfect game. So I got that's why I've got it. That is my extra favourite, I suppose, because although they're completely different games, they both bring in all the previous source material in a way that someone new coming to the series can kind of enjoy.
Yeah, like I always you see how they bring all the source material in. I really enjoyed how they did the storyline in Hyrule Warriors. How they brought all in different dimensions, and it was all split around and it got brought into one, and how they merged it all together. I did really enjoy that, and I thought they did really well. And the storyline itself was actually a really good storyline, I thought. I did really enjoy the game. And like you said, just the references to all the other games in the franchise and that. And it didn't feel shoehorned in either. How you had the Wind Waker universe or the Ocarina of Time universe. And so it didn't feel like they're just chucking it in there just to have them all in. It did feel like a nice progression of the storyline, I thought.
And thankfully they didn't do what they've done in some of the previous Dynasty Warriors games, where they've mashed up different storylines, because you could have had a very cringeworthy experience, I can tell you now from previous games, where you've got one character from one place, one character from the other place, that are kind of like the same but different versions of the same thing, going, oh, I didn't expect to see, what are you? And they're kind of like, you know what each other is. Stop going through this horrible hammy dialogue. Just get on with the fighting. I don't want to know. It could have been like that. You could have had pretty much 2D cutscenes of them chatting amongst themselves,
Yeah.
and it having no bearing on anything whatsoever to do with the storyline, which they have done, and thankfully they didn't do that. They actually brought in something that made sense. So a lot of your cutscenes were 3D, they were storyline driven, and they didn't have to try and explain themselves to you. So it could have been really bad, but they went a good way with it, I think.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I thought about the storyline is that where there was something edged in that maybe shouldn't have been there, but I'll allow it because I enjoyed it, was the whole Linkle. Obviously, she was just an extra for the game, and her storyline just seemed stapled on, where she was on her own, lost and trying to find a way. But her character, she was by far the standout character in the game for me, on the Switch version. Obviously, I didn't get it. I've got the 3DS version, but I've never played it on the 3DS, and that's where she got introduced into there, wasn't it?
I didn't know who she was or anything before playing that game.
Oh, she's just a character created just for Hyrule Warriors.
Okay.
Yeah, she's not canon nothing. She's created. I think they created her just for the 3DS version of Hyrule Warriors as an extra playable character, and that's what I mean. So you can tell in the Switch, in a storyline, you can tell because she's got no interaction with any of the other characters, kind of thing. I think she speaks to like Impa and stuff like that, but she is just literally wandering around lost trying to find a way. So her storyline did feel like stapled on the back of it, but her character, I loved her combo system, I loved her fighting style. For me, she was a standout character in the game. So I kind of forgive that because she is such a good character to play with.
Yeah.
But that's my only gripe about the game, that her storyline just felt tacked on the back, which of course it was, because she was just an add-on character into the game.
Yeah. For me, the only drawback was towards the end where they all part ways and go off back to their own dimensions. Like, that just wasn't needed, I didn't think.
Yeah.
That was too much like they'd done previously in other spin-off games where all these characters from different dimensions have to come and say goodbye at the end. It's like, just didn't need it. Yeah. That's just something that they do though. They always have to have a little powwow at the end and pat each other on the back and say, we've overcome all our differences and approaches and storylines and stuff. It just, that didn't need to happen, but everything up to that point was excellent, I thought. And even the Linkle, which you can tell is DLC because of how separate it is from the main storyline, but it still felt like a complete game when you were playing.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was the 3D cutscenes that you had with the other characters. But I suppose being that came from the 3DS, they probably didn't have that anyway as source material. They would have just had the 2D bits to explain each transition from one bit to the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they did a very good job, and the BGM wasn't entirely piano music as well, which could have bored me a bit.
Yeah, the music was really good in Hyrule Warriors, really good.
I think that's something with Breath of the Wild that I enjoyed quite a bit, because the previous games, the music is kind of constant to the point where once you've heard the same bars of music a few times over, you start to get
what I love most
quite irritated.
Breath of the Wild is the music is part of the game for exploration. Yes. So I can be walking around and all of a sudden there's a dragon, because the music changes and you're looking up looking for a dragon, or there's a guardian nearby, or there's something. Just those little changes in music, and all of a sudden you're on edge. You're sat chilling out, just walking down, all of a sudden you're on edge. Hang on, what's happening here? And you're looking around and it pulls you in. And even Hyrule Castle, I just love the music there because it's a variation of the overworld theme, but you don't realise it until you're singing along, and you think, ba 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 ba. Where's this come from? It gradually gets louder and louder as you get closer to the castle, and I love it. It just draws you in. The music on Breath of the Wild, everyone thinks it's non-existent, but that's the best kind because it's there.
Yeah. They're key to the game because they will let you know something's changed.
Yeah,
something's. They are your early warnings indicator system. Where if I'm getting my butt kicked by something in Link to the Past, I don't know about it. It's only just when the sound effects kick in and I'm dying.
Yeah.
Same in the first game. You only find out the moment you're on half a heart, and it is pretty much the game is swearing at you. It is punishing you and saying, "We've taken away your blade beam. You're one hit away from death. you didn't have an instruction manual with your cart-only copy, so you don't even know about potions yet. So you're going to have to take each fight as it comes and hope you get a heart back.
Yeah.
Which it knows you're on half a heart. It knows you don't have any potions. It certainly knows that this guy didn't even hand the letter in. He's borrowed this game. He's borrowed it off a friend who didn't loan him the instruction manual. So we're going to punish him. He's not going to get a heart. He's going to get bombs, because things that can kill you and your enemy are more productive than you surviving. And the amount of times you'd go from one area to another, so I've got to get to the next dungeon. And so, great, I've started on 3 hearts. So you instantly have to go around and beat everything up until you get full hearts. And then you've got to make the travel and hope you're going the right way. Hope you're not going to find the one time this mob will have its day rather than you have yours, and it will leave you on 2 free hearts before you even go into the dungeons. Like, I've gone from 13 hearts down to 3 against one trash mob on the map. Now I've got to go back and farm my way back to the dungeon to have full health again, because I tell you now, you go into the dungeon on low health, you will never get health to bring you back. Like, you had one where you actually managed to get hearts at the start of a dungeon. It's like, this is unheard of. Your copy must be broken, because it sure as heck didn't happen on mine. I've got video footage on YouTube to prove it. So, whereas this game doesn't punish you in the same way.
No.
You get food almost everywhere you go. It's just how much. If you screw up a fight, you get the opportunity to run away most of the time. You get the option to not get punished for your mistakes. You get the opportunity to learn from them. Whereas the previous games,
you can disappear and come back with a plan. Stuff like
you can
that.
Usually you have an escape aspect.
Yeah.
The previous games, there wasn't really that kind of approach. If you were fighting against something, chances are you'd end up stuck against a corner of the map that you couldn't get through, and then that's it, you died. Or it would get in close and you get a problem where the game wouldn't allow you to pass through the enemy because it's doing damage, and you die. This game's much more forgiving, but it rewards you when you do well, and it lets you know when you've done wrong, but not in a way that you're going to punish yourself, unless you're running around naked on 3 hearts with no armor. You have an opportunity to recover from your mistakes and learn from them. And the same goes for Hyrule Warriors as well. If you get low health, there's plenty of opportunities to make a tactical retreat. Get yourself sorted and come back and fight again.
Go around, try and find some health, and then go back with a different plan.
So I think you could count on one hand the number of times you actually die from low health versus the amount of times you've screwed up a tactic.
Definitely. I think a couple of times I died of low health, and it was mission fails, not game overs. I died a lot from.
Or if you're encountering a boss fight and there's actually a tactic to take out the boss, you can't just go and mash combos at it and expect to take it out. Some bosses you can, but the majority, there's a certain way you have to go about it, otherwise it will punish you for it.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing to it is more rewarding for me than, oh, you screwed up, right, now we're going to kill you. Which seems to be the mantra of certainly the first 3 games. Yeah. Or even the Game Boy version actually is the same as that. I think they will punish you if you don't do it the way that they want you to, or if you're not paying attention. Which, if you're stuck in the lost, what was it called? The on the way to Death Mountain on the previous game. Lost Hills, the one that just repeats over and over. Yeah. You're not paying attention there, you can end up with something in there that will eat you. So, yeah.
So that's good summary of both games there, Simon. They both really are fantastic games. A good choice of 2 games there, which are your favourite in the franchise. Like you say, I can't not agree. I think Breath of the Wild is up there. It's definitely in my top 3. In Hyrule Warriors, it is a fantastic game. So good choices, really.
Yeah, I certainly think the definitive introduction to the series, if you were having never played it.
Yeah.
I think they're the games that would set you on a path to want to go play previous ones in the series. Whether you enjoy them or not, I think it's something that would, if you finish Breath of the Wild or you finish Hyrule Warriors, you want to know more.
Yeah.
I think you can't. I don't think you can not get through those games and not be interested in the previous games in the series, whether you like them or not.
Yes. Right, so I think that's probably does all that for Simon's favourite games in the series. So that was part 3, Simon's favourite games. Join us for part 4, where we'll be discussing a topic of Simon's choice. Do you want to let everyone know what our topic will be, Simon?
It will be Golden Axe Warrior on the Sega Master System.
Yes, which is apparently a Zelda rip-off. People call it a clone, a rip-off. There's a lot of debate about
a homage.
A homage maybe, but yeah, it's but that's the topic we're going to be discussing, so join us for that. We shall see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.